UTSA football post-game wrap-up. JJ Perez, Inside Runner Sports. Greg Lucas, San Antonio Express News. Roadrunners with a come-from-behind victory today over Rice. Homecoming 2019 at the Alamo Dome. Big day for the UTSA Roadrunners. We saw a little offense today, Greg.
Yeah, we absolutely did. Lowell Narcisse had his best game as a Roadrunner, threw for more than 200 yards, a couple touchdowns. What was most impressive was, if you remember how little football he's really played the last few years with some of his injuries in high school,
Right.
redshirt year at LSU, didn't play much in JUCO. To come out here and lead not one but two late touchdown drives.
Yeah.
I guess it was sort of late because it was still the third quarter, but it was they only had their final two possessions that they scored touchdowns on, and he led them more than 75 yards. Really impressive, the composure and some of the throws he made that, honestly, it didn't seem like he was capable of, just because of how inaccurate he had been up to this point in the year.
Yeah, he looks real comfortable out there, and I think he's been talking the last few weeks about how he felt like he was getting close. And even today he said he missed some opportunities, and I don't know, what do you think his ceiling is in this offense?
That's a really good question. I don't know. I think he played well enough today that for a sophomore, you got to think if this is a guy who can play for you for a while. But it is also important to remember you're at home and you're against a winless team in Rice. He didn't do this to one of the conference powerhouses or anything like that. But just, again, like I said, he played better than I thought he was capable of, just from the perspective of hitting open guys. And there was still some where the timing was a little bit off,
Right.
where he probably made it tougher than it had to be.
Right.
It's not perfect, but clearly there's a lot of room for him to develop because he has such a strong arm and he's so athletic and he's such a good runner that maybe if you can refine some of those other things, I don't know how much you can improve your accuracy as a passer from year to year,
Right.
but it shouldn't get worse. So, yeah, there's a potential that he could be a guy who does a lot here going forward. I wouldn't be surprised if he played, through the rest of this year and then was in the mix next year and then going beyond.
Quarterback controversy? Too early to go.
It's too early to start
Yeah.
it, but yeah, why wouldn't there be?
Yeah.
We saw Frank Harris at his best against Incarnate Word probably.
Yeah.
And it looked a lot like what we saw here. You're running for big gains, you're moving the chains, you're hitting these intermediate passes,
Yeah.
and maybe the threat of the deep ball is a lot stronger from Frank
Yeah.
Harris than it
Yeah.
is from the wall at this point. Not from the arm strength standpoint, but from the accuracy standpoint. But again, all that other stuff, he was right there with him. And has proven to be durable. He takes some big hits in these games.
Right.
He keeps getting up.
I was impressed. He hit that flag route in the corner. That was a perfect
Yeah,
pass.
had good touch on it. There's
Yeah.
I think the knock on him probably is that his passes all are just like fastballs,
Bullets,
like he's just
yeah.
rocketing throws
Yeah.
in there. And there's a couple of times where we've seen him been able to drop it in like an over-the-shoulder style of catch that he's setting up, which is not what you come to think of when you imagine how he's going to play.
And that was a jaw-dropping hurdle. He said he just kind of jumped
Yeah,
over
right.
him.
It was
he was very humble about it.
It was quite a good run.
Yeah.
He made a couple of big plays. I mean, even if you want to talk about, I thought they were dead in the water on the two-point conversion play because he's rolling out and the play went on like uncomfortably long,
Yes.
and then he found sticks, and I just
Used
thought it was
that
a
arm
really good
strength
play.
there. Yeah.
So he did a lot of things really well tonight, and kind of like we've seen before, where he can buy time and didn't have the gaudy rushing total. I don't think that we've seen before, like 30 something yards, but did it with his arm this time, which was just very different to see.
Let's stay right there with the rushing game. UTSA didn't start off very good rushing, which was kind of surprising.
Yeah.
We were looking at the stats in pregame, and I think we both kind of thought they'd be able to rush the ball, and they kind of stuck with it, though.
Right.
Sincere had a pretty good game, almost 100 yards.
Well, the thing is, the running the ball is such their identity on offense now, or so we thought, because in the first two games, Lowell hadn't thrown for more than 100 yards
Right.
in his two starts. So the game plan had clearly been to try to establish the running game. And you're going up against Rice, who plays power football of their own. So you want to have, I'm sure both sides just kind of want to mash heads in that way and just kind of go get after it in that sense. And we saw at halftime, Sincere McCormick, first of all, was not out there exclusively.
Right,
Brendan
a lot
Brady
of Brendan
played
Brady.
a lot.
Yeah.
But he only had 11 yards. And then in
Yeah.
the second half, he broke off like a 35-yarder. And then later he broke off another 30-yard run and ended with 90-ish for the game. So I thought his performance in the second half, really getting going and sticking with it in a game where he had kind of been bottled up to that point, was pretty impressive. As if we needed more reason to be impressed with him. Right?
My last point on the offense before we jump to the defense, Zachary Franklin with 2 touchdown grabs, Carlos Strickland with 6 receptions. It looks like those are Lowell's favorite guys. Is that
Yeah,
fair
I think we
analysis?
saw in the first game that he went to sticks a lot.
Yeah.
And then I believe against UTEP, it looked like Strickland might have been the guy
Right.
he was targeting the
Right.
most. So I think Strickland has been kind of positioned as a focal point of the offense from
Yeah.
a passing perspective in a lot of ways, especially when they get near the red zone. That we've seen that he's a guy that they've targeted on those kind of fade routes at times. But here it was a lot of crossing patterns and kind of over the middle stuff that I thought, yeah, he was very effective with.
Defensively, the Roadrunners give up some yards and kind of don't play well at times, and so some big plays. That 55-yarder that set up a score was a huge play in the game, and but they come together. They come out with the win here on the last drive. That was a pretty impressive last defensive drive.
I mean, they made that one play.
Yeah.
It was DQ Henry who made the sack.
Yeah.
Other than that, they were in position to lose the game there.
Right.
I thought the defense was not outstanding. I'd want to look at the numbers more closely, but when the other team scores 27,
Yeah.
and they had 2 fumbled snaps,
Right.
and
An
then they had an
interception.
interception
Yep.
return for a touchdown, which that was just horrific.
Yeah,
throw.
he threw it right at him.
I don't really know how.
I mean,
that,
there was 2 other interceptions that they threw right at
Right.
defenders that UTSA couldn't come up with.
But if you think about like the way the game played out, there was only probably 10 offensive drives.
Yeah.
And they gave away 3 or 4 of them.
Right.
And they still scored 27 points. Like I think they were decently efficient
Right.
in the drives that they didn't make these weird errors that you wouldn't expect to see. So there were some things UTSA did well defensively, but I think Rice's offense just isn't very good
Yeah.
potentially. So I
Yeah.
think that's probably a bigger factor. I don't know if the defense is going to feel like this was one of their better performances.
All right, I agree. I thought Rice won the battle of the trenches. They got some push, and I think that really set things apart for them.
It felt like, to me, and I would want to watch it again before I said this with any confidence, but it felt like when they spread the field a little bit more, their offensive line was able to get a push up front.
Yeah.
Versus when they packed the box in and UTSA could load more guys in the box.
Yeah.
It felt like UTSA won those plays.
Yeah.
So I know Rice wanted to play the power offense game, but they were able to play power offense from a spread set better than
Yeah.
from their power sets,
Yep.
it felt like. And I think they probably didn't do enough of that or had too many drives where, especially when they came out, like when they had a lead, they would come back out with like 2 backs and 2 tight ends and just say, oh, this is like we want to drain 12 minutes off the clock here.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
It just wasn't working for them as well as the other stuff. Now, of course, they didn't have a great day passing the ball either. They ended up switching quarterbacks during the game.
Several times.
So, there probably was no perfect solution for them, but they still managed to pick up chunks in other stretches. Like, especially when they were playing from behind, it felt like they moved the ball up.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about the social media stuff that's been going on this week. Probably the last few weeks, and historically, Frank Wilson has said that he's been insulated from it. And
Yeah, people filter that for him, and all these certain
really
stuff
doesn't
gets to
see
him.
it. But this week he came out and said that he made a point of emphasis to stay positive, to try and make sure his players knew that kind of none of that stuff mattered to them. And he even talked about it today in postgame.
Yeah, it's impressive because I think the players very actively seem to engage with that stuff.
Yes.
And I don't think that they're outliers in that sense. I'm sure everybody college player is doing that.
Right.
But you'll see stuff that they like or that they retweet that they're obviously seeing.
Yes.
That's not always very encouraging.
Right.
And for them to have that level of awareness of that and be told to focus on the positives, I don't know if I was in that room how that message would have landed with me.
Right.
It's obviously it seems like they responded to it very well, but I think for me it would have been hard to hear that. So I credit Frank Wilson for understanding that message is going to work with his team, if that makes sense. Because if I was in his position, I wouldn't have done that. I don't think that's something that people would. I think people would be roll their eyes at.
Yeah. Put your head down and get through it.
But for them, it worked to look at the positives and to try to feed off of those things. Because they did have this belief, I think, that they were just a couple plays away.
Yeah.
And against UAB, you could make that argument. And in a lot of other games, you couldn't make that argument.
Right.
They were not just a couple plays away. So for them to be able to harness what they did well and turn that into more positive things was pretty impressive, I thought.
17,000 in the dome and some change here. A few thousand more than last week. I think that's the third lowest in program attendance. But there was more energy.
There was
an
atmosphere.
Yeah.
Last week, it just felt so dead.
Yeah.
It was silent. There would be key third downs. Because like we said, the game was close through the third quarter.
Yeah.
And it just felt like every play just felt like there was no stakes or energy.
Yeah.
It didn't really matter. And this game, when there was these critical third downs, and Rice faced a lot of them because they converted a lot of them.
Yeah, they converted a ton.
That there was at least the noise and the pressure coming in that I felt like there was something to feed off of. And I think we saw that translate to the sideline. Now, it helps when you're in a close game in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
But this was where they do the come and take it in the fourth quarter.
Everybody was into
quarters.
it.
They were into it, where in past weeks it was like the game had already been decided or they just didn't seem to have that same energy.
It seems like the Roadrunners really needed a win this week, and You know, it wasn't real pretty, but they got it done, and now they go to the bye week, and they have Texas A&M, and it kind of, I don't know if this, you could say with any certainty that this is going to turn the season around, but it keeps, I guess, hope alive for positivity.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they're going to have a better 2 weeks and 3 weeks, really, because they'll shrug off whatever happens
Right.
at A&M than if they didn't. But you beat a winless team
Yes.
by 7
Right.
at home,
At
or
home.
by 4
Yeah.
at home.
On homecoming.
And
Yeah.
it just doesn't say that you're a team to be reckoned with in Conference
Right.
USA by
Right.
any stretch. And it's interesting to think about, you know, Frank Wilson is gonna reflect positively on him to have another win, but there were some questionable coaching moves. I
Yep.
thought in this game.
The fake punt.
The fake punt. It was
the flea flicker.
4th and 6 at their own
Yeah.
31. And not only do they run a fake punt, but it's this like double reverse fake punt.
Yeah.
And Rice clearly, like, they just came out in a defense. Like,
Yeah.
they knew something was going to happen.
Right.
And so that seems really weird. And I've never seen a team run a flea flicker in the red zone.
Right.
It actually was more of an opportunity to score on that play than I thought.
Yeah.
They got like a one-on-one matchup, and he kind of had a chance to make a play on the ball, but it just seems like a weird call. So I don't know if how
You're gonna
well
point to this
I don't
as
know
a-
if this is a coaching victory.
Right.
Today, is what
Right.
I would say.
And they overcame that though at the end of the day.
I really thought, like, the fake punt happens and then Rice scores.
Yeah, and then you're
2
like,
plays later,
that's it.
They go up by 8, and
Yeah.
I was like, there's
Yeah.
no way they come back from that.
Right.
And that's when they went into the drive, the first of 2 really impressive drives to kind of take the win. So that was impressive. I'll give them that. But that's why I was even more impressed with what Lowell did.
Yes.
Just because the energy had been so
Yes.
down prior to that.
Yeah.
It felt like the game was kind of decided, and then suddenly it wasn't.
Did you know that Alfredo sauce was not an Italian?
I didn't.
invention?
I learned that in the midst of the game-winning
Yeah.
drive, I think.
Yeah.
JJ dropped a lot of knowledge on us.
Did
there.
we miss anything else, Greg? Is that it? Penalties?
Well, what do you got?
They weren't terrible. They just came at very inopportune times.
6 for 61 according to the stats.
Yeah.
Rice is the least penalized team in college football, and they only
Yeah.
had 4 for 31, so they
Yeah.
did that.
Yeah.
The third down conversions, maybe we can talk about that a little bit
Yeah.
more if you want. That was part of why Rice was able to stay on the field for so long, because they were 9 of 14. Is that right?
Yeah.
So
That's pretty good.
That's how they had like 35 minutes time of possession in the game, because they were able to just extend drives that way. And I don't know. I still would have to watch it again to say definitively whether I thought they played a good offensive game or not.
Yeah.
I think they moved the ball pretty well, but then UTSA came up with a turnover, or more likely Rice just gave them a
Yeah,
turnover.
shot themselves
when
in the
they
foot,
needed it.
yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens from here. Open week for them to kind of
Open week.
to mull over something positive for a change.
Well, that'll wrap it up here from the Alamo Dome. Appreciate everybody watching. Greg Luca, San Antonio Express News, at Greg Luca. JJ Perez, Inside Runner Sports. Thanks for watching.